Let's get some more reaction and analysis to the decision by Kamala Harris to appoint Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, as her running mate. Let's go live to Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Kosha, what do you make of this choice?
I think, as you said, Kieran, a little bit of a surprise. He was in the top three finalists, but he was the underdog, and most of the smart money was on Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Look, I think it's important to step back and remember that VP picks, while always big news in the campaign cycle, do not historically actually do that much to the electoral outcome. Most recent example of that was Paul Ryan, the running mate of Mitt Romney. He actually didn't even help Mitt Romney carry Wisconsin, his home state. That said, what a vice presidential pick does signify, importantly, is a little bit about the thinking of the top of the ticket. And I think, this was the first decision of Kamala Harris, and she has really shown that she is prioritizing the far left wing of the party more so than the moderate, because Josh Shapiro would have been more moderate. Tim Walz is on the record with many positions that most would consider quite radical on abortion and trans medical interventions for trans children, COVID lockdown treatment, the economy. Of course, BLM riots were ground zero in his home state. All of that stuff is on the record. And, she's made a very clear, she's turned this election into a very clear, high contrast choice, I think, with this pick of something that's much more to the left of the center of gravity of the country versus the prescription that Trump and J.D. Vance are offering.
The thing about, and we've discussed this, Donald Trump is rock solid with his base. They are going to vote. They're going to mobilize that vote. There's no doubt about that. We know that. Is this the Democratic leader in Kamala Harris trying to do the same on her side to mobilize that base to ensure that they maintain the energy and a bit of momentum?
It seems to be, and there's a fracturing in both parties, as we know, and the left of the aisle, the fracturing in recent times has really been sort of about the pro-Hamas and kind of the growing Muslim contingency in that base versus the other side. And many people are saying that also came into her decision to choose Tim Walz over Josh Shapiro. So it does seem like a play or a nod to that side of the party and shoring up that base. I think the problem is, if you just look at the electoral map, right now, she has a few paths to 270, which is what it requires to win, but not many. And all the paths run through Pennsylvania, which is still a purple state, a little bit more of a middle-of-the-road state. And so the calculus, I think, neither party can win basically by only turning out their base. They have to get a little bit more of the moderates in the middle, and it'll be interesting to see now if she's able to do that with this pick. There, of course, is going to be an overdrive to frame him. Not many people are familiar with him across the country, so the next 2 to 3 weeks, I think, are going to be crucial in terms of what kind of messages they get out about his record and his approach to different policies.
Yeah, indeed. Both sides will be doing their best on that front. So Minnesota governor, he was a member of Congress for 12 years. Can you give us a sense for our viewers what that represents in terms of what states he might have some appeal across there, Kosha?
It's interesting because he's technically or geographically in the Midwest and in sort of that blue wall. The blue wall is generally regarded to be Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So this is a little bit outside of that, but in that kind of Midwestern rust belt of the country that has been borne the brunt of the manufacturing collapsing and jobs being sent overseas and all of those issues affecting the working class. So he comes from that state. However, interestingly, his record, which I was alluding to at the top here, is quite radical in terms of the far left on all those host of issues around the culture wars and everything else that I mentioned. So it's a little bit of a paradox in a way. And I think what's going to be interesting is, are they able to frame him based on his geographic situation and maybe his affectations and how he comes across versus his record. There's another story, too, I would quickly highlight that hasn't been picked up by too many mainstream media outlets yet, but I suspect they will in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It did come out when he was vetted in his run for governor, because he was a congressman who ran for governor. He did serve in the military, in the National Guard of Minnesota for 24 years honorably. But then there's a little bit of discrepancy in what he did after 9/11. And some people, senior leaders in the military, are alleging that he basically retired early just before his unit was going to be deployed for active combat duty in Iraq. And we've seen, who knows if this will make a difference or not, but we have seen it hurt other candidates in the past, like John Kerry. And that could be something that's interesting to watch, especially because he's going to be going up against J.D. Vance on the other side, who did serve in the Marine Corps in Iraq.
Good point. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch if that gets some traction, because as you rightly point out, we've seen it before, haven't we, through the Kerry candidacy and so on. Kosha Gada, great to get your insights. We really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.